You're listening to WJHS 91.5, The Eagle. Welcome to Media in the Making, a podcast where we look at the evolution of media from 1600 all the way to present-day 2022. In this podcast series, we ask, how have different forms of media evolved and changed culture? Media in the Making, where media and culture are always changing. Now let's take a step back in time. Nowadays, a common memory that many kids have is running down the stairs on Christmas, opening up a present to get a game sealed in a thin plastic case that feels great to open, then throwing it into your console and playing for hours over the next few days. But how did all this start? The year is 1972, and the Magnavox Odyssey has just hit the shelves. The Odyssey is the first home video game console invented. The Odyssey is important because it was instrumental in the evolution of the now multi-billion-dollar video game industry. But to show the impact of the Odyssey, we have to talk about what it was.
The Magnavox Odyssey holds the title of being the first ever console invented in 1972 by Ralph Baer. The Odyssey was the first of its kind. The idea of a game being able to be played at your home and on the TV was brand new to the people. The controls for the console consists of two dials, one to move up and down and the other to move left and right. As for the game, you were given stickers to put on your TV to imitate the game you wanted to play. If you felt like playing tennis, you would be playing a very similar game to Pong, but with the tennis core outline, and rules you had to enforce. But how much was the Odyssey originally sold for?
In 1972, the console, including the stickers and controllers, was sold for $99.95. which is equivalent to around $618 in 2020. This was a major investment, especially for a console with only one coded game. More than likely, you have never heard of the Odyssey. Why would the first console be unknown to most people? Well, the Odyssey being new, expensive, basically just an arcade cabinet, and untested, it was partially inevitable that it didn't work out well. In just 3 short years, Magnavox discontinued the Odyssey. In the following years, they made many consoles with small improvements, which led to little or no success. With all of these flaws, how did the Odyssey change culture?
Great question. While the Odyssey had quite a few problems, it was still the first of its kind to be introduced to the public. Being the first, it gave rise to the industry. Culturally, because it allowed more interaction with digital entertainment, the Magnavox gave rise to a more indoor-focused society. People would no longer need to leave their house or be as active to get entertainment or have fun. This gave rise to a more sedentary lifestyle in America that persisted to this day. In fact, if anything, people have gotten more and more sedentary over time since the release of the Odyssey and other consoles. This is because the industry has gotten larger and more popular with wider public. Studies have shown that kids spend more time indoors than outside, and video games are a huge part of this. Mind you, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as you can cut down on travel time and make time when you need to stay at home more fun. As always, everything must be kept in moderation, or else you risk your physical or mental health. You can also see the Odyssey's influence by looking at the consoles that came after it and video games as a whole impacted on other media.
Media changed by consoles are typically ones in the digital field. For example, YouTube and many other apps have entire categories dedicated to games. It's even easy to see its impact on education. Teachers commonly use games like Quizlet, Booklet, and GimKit to have kids memorize words and definitions. And they will be used in classrooms for the foreseeable future. It would be impossible to say that culture hasn't been changed by the influence of the Magnavox. You can also see video games intersecting with pop cultures like TV and books. Ready Player One is a dystopian book about a VR world written in 2011. Even more recently, Free Guy was a movie made in 2021 about a video game character that gained sentience. In more recent years, esports have become very popular, allowing people like Johan Sunderstein to make over $7 million from just playing video games. All this together makes it clear to see the growth and acceptance of the console from the public.
Technology may have made the Magnavox obsolete, but it is still important because it has helped pave the way on what not to do, so that future consoles can be more successful and powerful. I doubt the video game industry could have ever reached the height it is now without the Magnavox taking the first steps.
Media in the Making is brought to you by WJHS 91.5 and the Eagle Tech Academy Mass Media classes. Media in the Making, teaching you about the evolution of media throughout history and its effects on culture. For more from the students, this podcast series is on the 91.5 website, wjhs915.org. Thank you for joining us.